3 things you should be doing to get crispy bangers on every single one of your car photos. The first 2 I've been doing since day 1, and the last one is actually a new one I've picked up, and it works a treat. So here we've got a lovely GTR. Let me just quickly edit it, 2 seconds. That's gonna take no time at all because my banging presets are wonders. Job done, photo edited, before and after. There you go, no problemo. So what we're gonna do, first one is a radial gradient. It's the most simple one, but it makes the most difference. So I'm gonna expose the car where I want it to. So I wanna be able to see probably about that much of the car, but look at the surroundings. It is too overexposed. So we go radial gradient, bosh. Then we're going to pull it over the car. Just remember, the smaller the circle, the more of a blend it's going to be into that center point, but the less of a circle, if I do this, it's going to be a really harsh cut off. So we want to make sure we've got at least halfway in between the car body, not too small, just about halfway. We'll go about there. Then we're going to invert the mask. Now it's going to affect everything around the car. So what do we do from here? Well, now we just pull down the rest of the image to where I want it to. So I just want that sky to come down. I want that shadow at the bottom of the car and on the road. So we'll go about there. We'll say about there. And then we'll bring the highlights down a little bit from the sky, just to make everything a little bit more dull. It's really subtle, but you can just see that difference. If I lift this back up and this back up, it's kind of just a flat image on its own. Like everything is just really flat. The colors are just all the same. It's not separating the car from the background and making the car pop for that crispy banger. So just as simple as that. Pull it down, pull the highlights down, nothing too crazy, but it makes a hell of a difference. The second thing we are going to do to the photo to get crispy bangers is this little tactic I like to use. So my preset hasn't actually done that right now, it's just done the colors for me. So what I like to do is grab the shadows, lift them all the way up, because then we can reveal all the parts of the car. But now the car doesn't look that aggressive, it looks a bit shit. So what we're gonna do is lower the exposure, but obviously if we did it right now, it would do it for the whole image. We don't want that. We want it to keep the same as what it was. So we get rid of that and we come into the selected subject, grab the car, bosh, it's got the rest of the cars, so we're just going to quickly minus the rest of them out, get rid of that, don't want to affect them, piss off. Bosh, so it's just going to affect this car here. So we're just going to lift the shadows all the way up, again making the car look a bit light, not as aggressive, but now we just bring down the exposure of the car to darken it, but we've still got those shadows lifted, as opposed to if we just had the shadows down and then we just pulled the exposure down even more, we'd just have even darker shadows. So we just need to lift them up all the way, so it's really light, but then pull the exposure down on top of that, and then you can darken the car but still have the shadows and the parts of the exhausts that you can actually see, but it's just a bit more aggressive and a bit more, it's just a nicer look. So you lift the shadows, but then bring the exposure down. Don't just bring the exposure down, because then you lose the shadows. It's a cool mix. Not many people do that, but it's a slight little thing I do to every single one of them, just to bring that little extra details out of the car, while still maintaining the aggressive look. So those are the first 2 things I do to every single one. This last one, I do to some of them, depending on the conditions. So right now, I'm gonna do it. So we've got a lineal gradient. You're gonna get the lineal gradient and then you're gonna bosh it from whatever angle you want, and we're basically gonna decide if we want to bring shadows into the car, into the image from one side, or we wanna bring the sunlight and the sunbeams into the image. But we don't want that to affect the car that we've just edited, because that's gonna ruin it. So what you can do, which I never knew you could, you might know this might be really simple, but I've only just found out about it. You add a lineal gradient and then you come up here and you press the minus, and then you select, what do you select? Select subject, minus select subject. So now as you see, the lineal gradient is going to go around the car and affect everything else apart from the car. You might think that we could have done this with a radial gradient, but it's different, because a radial gradient is going to do the whole thing around it. We just want to go from one side and add shadows, as you're going to see, to the bottom right, making this bottom right part of the image look a bit more mysterious and a bit more dark. So then the car has got some light and shade into the photo, and we're actually going to pull that linear gradient back down a little bit, because it is how do I get, where is it? How do I, give me it. What are you doing? What? Why can't I pull it back down? There it is. Pull that back down a little bit so it's not affecting too much of the image, but we just want that right bottom to be the darker part. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing for the top part. So I'm going to pull that down from the bottom, top left, go a bit more crazy with this. Then we're going to overexpose it, and we're going to add haze, a bit of haze, and then we're going to add an orange glow to it. And obviously we don't want this to affect the car either, so we're going to do the same thing. Press this, minus, select subject. Has it done it? Yes. So now it's going to go around the subject. We've got that nice beam of light coming in from the top. We've got a nice shadow version on the bottom right. The car hasn't been affected. We've done the second adjustment where we've brought the shadows up but lowered the exposure so the car's looking aggressive with the shadows still showing. And then we've got a radial gradient which is still in place, which is generally, you could go back to this and do it again if you wanted to, but it is just generally pulling that because that's where it was. So it is still in effect because that's where it was. This is where it is now, and that has brought the whole photo together. Let me show you the before and after with those 3 things on it. There's your first one, there's your second one. We could even bring the exposure down a tiny bit more over the whole image in general now to pull it all together. That's about sweet there. There's your photo. Those are the 3 things I do to every single one of my car photos, depending on the weather with that last one, to make them look extra crispy and stand out a lot more than everyone else's. They might not anymore if you're about to go try this as well. We might be both doing this now, but yeah, I highly recommend you start doing, I've had my phone in shot this whole time. How unprofessional. Yeah, you should start doing those to every single one of your car photos. You'll drastically see a difference and you'll get those questions like, how do you make the car pop so much? Well, secrets. Anyway, hopefully that helped. Presets are linked below. As you saw, that look in 1 click, bosh, no problem. We've also got a Discord, Instagram, TikTok. We're doing lives. We're doing all of it. Subscribe. The channel's slowly growing. Car photography content. Goodbye.